Lakeside Bait and Tackle. You know how we do the ice reports, all the other videos and that. We've done this on a YouTube video where we had a guy in my boat and tried to do it. It worked out. It had 40,000 views on it. So there were so many comments, so many questions. So that's why I'm going to try to cover everything. I don't speak off a script, so anything you got to ask me, just ask me. It works a lot better because if I know it, I won't say it because I assume people know it. So I don't care how dumb it is, just ask me. Let me start out this way. I'm Doug Ide from Guide Ide Fishing. Years ago, I used to be sponsored by Offshore Boards. I'm not anymore, so I don't try to do all of that stuff anymore. It's just not worth my time. First time I ever ran a planer board, my buddy Matt Bauer says, hey, I can teach you how to do this. And you know, you guys have all seen Gillespie down on Lake Michigan catching the stinky brown trout. And I'm like, well, there's too much ice, or not enough ice for us to get on the lakes. But Lake Michigan's open, it's 40 degrees. I want to go do something. He's like, oh, I'm going to show you. All right. I go by Brad, I buy 4 boards, I'm all excited. We get in the boat, you know, explains it to me. This is how far I want you to run lure back. This is what I want you to do, blah, blah, blah. All right, I got this. No problem. I get it. I fished for 4 freaking hours. When we got back to the launch, 2 of the boards that we wound in had 2 like 12-inch them sea frill and trout on them. They were both dead because I've been dragging them for hours. I was like, well, I learned a lot. Okay. So me and my brother go the next morning. First board we set, we were literally behind the outtake in the power plant. Offshores are my favorite. And I'll show you a bunch of reasons. So we'll start with Geneva walleyes. Geneva at night's Clear Lake. We usually don't start trolling them till October. Well, I shouldn't say that. We troll them in the morning all summer long till the lake gets crazy. In the mornings, we don't run boards. We just run harnesses over the side of the boat. Run the boat 6/10, 7/10 per mile an hour, really slow. Just as long as that blade's spinning, it's all you want. And you want to keep connecting with the bottom, keep picking the rod up. Best thing to do is have that rod in your hand. So again, we don't run boards doing that. And then in the summer also, you've got 8 million people out there, so it's not going to work out for you. Biggest reason I run offshore, to make a tattle flag kit. Fish grabs it, my flag drops. You can tell on the back of them, they got different holes for different tensions, different settings. Running like a number 7 flicker, it doesn't pull. You know, there's nothing to it, so you run it at a less tension rate. You run an F18 Rapala, you drop your tension rate down farther because you want that flag to stay up. First thing I do when I set my boards, and I know everybody gets my boat wants to help me, best thing to do is let me set them and I'll show you from there. I run my first, say we're fishing 14 feet of water and we're using Sour Grape Elite 8s. I know at 75 feet, that lure is 14 feet down at 1.7 miles an hour. Everybody has a smartphone. You don't need to know what dive chart every lure does. Your phone will tell you. Because there's sometimes I get something new it's been a while since I've ran something I don't remember. Well, if you ask your phone, it'll tell you that lure. You don't need to buy that app and all that other stuff. It'll literally tell you from the manufacturer. Any flicker minnows that you buy or flicker shads, it says on the package at what speed the dive chart of that lure. But so first thing I do is what I'll do is I'll work an edge. Like since we're gonna, like you said, you want to talk about Geneva. Let's say we're gonna start in Fontana. I'm gonna put my boat in, let's say 18 feet of water. So I'm gonna put my farthest board out in 30 feet of water. So I'm gonna well, for one, I'm gonna have to put something that'll get 25 feet down. So now we're gonna talk about like a number 11 flicker. Well, I'm going to set that 150 feet before I even connect my board to it. Then I connect my board, I run that one. What I try to do is I always run 4 behind me. I run 2 on this side, 2 on this side. I want this side to be my deepest. The only bad thing about that is you can't turn around. So if you hit fish, you go to turn around, you're screwed because you got one side of your boat's deeper than the other. You're not running a continuous depth. But I will run them from 30 feet into 5 feet of water. You know, to have like a number 9 flicker 14 feet down, it's just got to be 70 feet back. All of that's on your dive chart. We kind of had a mess on the way here, so I'll show you. They're actually a lot more simple than what they look. So with your reel, you put your lure out however far out you wanted it, however depth you were going to put it out. They do come with 3 different clips when you buy them. This is my favorite clip, and I'll show you why. If you're running mono, which I run mono for my straight line for walleyes, I run braid for my straight line for muskies. Running mono, it's so simple. It's in, it's done. It stays everything else. With braid, it'll slide up and down this clip. So with braid, I just wrap it one time. Now it's in. Put a little bit of slack in your line. There's a pin behind here. Hey, can you grab me one of Sean's that don't have a pin on it? Always make sure your line's behind that pin. So now what happens as you're going, fish pulls, flag goes down. If it's a muskie, a pike, anything like that, it doesn't matter because the board's gonna look like it's got Tourette's or something in the water. Biggest thing when you see everybody, you always notice how our boards are always in a line behind the boat. Everybody says, oh, I ran this one 200 feet out, I ran this one 150 feet out, this one I ran 100 feet out. Don't ever think of it, and a lot of people that get in my boat ask me that all the time, well, how do you get them in such a straight line? I don't care what the reel says on how far the board is from my boat. What I care is that when I look at them standing in the front of my boat, they're in a straight line. Because what will happen is, again, you said you wanted to talk about Geneva, you'll get a friggin' rock bass on at night, you can't see it, and you'll drag this fish for hours. And well, now you got a bait that's not working, you got a bait that's not catching fish. If you have them in a straight line, flag doesn't go, the board will still start coming back a little bit. All of a sudden, you know you have something on there because that board's not where it's supposed to be. So it's a really good habit. What I put DOT reflector tape on mine. The reason being, no, he's got the clip without the pin in the back. The reason being is at night, I'd rather hit mine with my headlamp. It takes very little, even with the moon I can see my boards because they'll reflect. I don't like them tea lights because when you're into clear water, I don't think them fish stick around. Just like when you're when you're casting out of the boat, you get your headlamp on, them fish come so close to that boat and then they usually stop and they'll do the muskie stop where they either hit the brakes or they just sink. They won't have nothing to do with it. So that's why I don't like the big lights on it. And again, I'll go back to the clip here. I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. I've had a lot of coffee. Reason I like these, somebody's got a fish on, it's open, board's in my hand, and it won't hurt, and I drop them 5,000 times a year in my boat. And it doesn't hurt him at all. Sean from M&W here, we were kind of looking at his. I was going to bring more with different clips, and then I found out this morning they're in my boat.
When you release it, how do you handle the line to let it go?
If you had this rod in your hand, so once you get the board up here, I'm usually standing on, well, I got an impact, but I'm usually standing on the back deck. You're usually here. Usually I'll stop you before you try to send the board through my guides, and I do hold on to the line. So when I drop it, I try to have the line in my hand, and we try to work together. And it's not something that's going to happen every time, first time, but usually I try to make sure that there is tension on this before I let go of the line. I've had, 7, 8 years ago, him and I were on Delavan. We were running harnesses for walleyes in July. I was running, back then I ran a lot of braid. I went to wrap it around the front of the board so it didn't slide through. I hit a 6-pound smallmouth. I ended up with the line on my finger. I had blood everywhere. It was literally horrible. Another reason I don't run braid anymore on them. So, but I try not to put any slack in it. It does happen. 90% of the time, if we lose a fish, I've lost a fish before you had to pull in your hand. You'll see the board went back a couple times, and then it just comes right back forward in line where it's supposed to. Or if I lose the fish, it's not when I took the board off, it's, trying to politely say, it's operator error. It's the guy that, now he sees it, now he's excited, and he starts not taking his time and starts overpowering it, and we lose it before I can get the net in its mouth. Or people try to, and you got to remember, I do this every day. So for somebody else that doesn't, they get excited. I mean, I get excited a lot too. But as the year goes on, I start calming down very little. Or they switch me to decaf. But that's usually how we lose them, though. It's usually operator error or the fish didn't have it. Usually, once you got treble hooks in a fish, 9 out of 10 of them are coming to the bowl. We do lose a lot on harnesses, just because sometimes, some mornings you'll have it, and I'll have both hooks in their mouth with the blade in their mouth. The next morning, I'll keep coming back where half the leech is gone or half the crawler's gone, and they didn't do nothing with it. But I usually don't lose them when we're taking the board off. But at that point also, that pole's way the heck up here, because I'm 6 feet tall and I'm standing on the back of my deck. I mean, you have upper pressure on it. So, but other than that, now here's the one Sean uses. Sean doesn't have a clip behind his. I don't care for that. Reason being is I want everything to be in line. I want everything to be in control. I've seen it where you get the short strike where they nail it and drop it. Now the board's running funny and you can't understand why. It's because the line fell out of it. You can answer it, buddy. It's okay. How you doing?
Hello?
They're trying to sell him a car warranty. Give him a second here.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? But if you notice, there's a clip behind mine. There's not on his. And again, they actually come with this red clip on the front and the red clip on the back when you buy them. Tattle flag kit's actually separate, so when you buy them, they got the board is stationary. That's a guy that never fishes apparently. But other than that, what else? How else do you want me to cover it? Go ahead.
Speed?
What are you trying to run?
Well, say if you're going for walleyes,
So say same speed depends what you're doing, depends what you're running, but it's going to be the same speed as if you were holding the pole or if you were running a planer board. Doesn't change your speed.
right?
If you're running your walleyes at 1.2, or you're running them at 1.6, or you're running them at 2, running a board doesn't change that. Everything's still the same. The good thing with the boards though, let's say you're into November where we start really slowing down to get them, where they don't want that fast lure at them. So you haven't had anything happen, A lot of times, like, again, we'll go to Geneva. So we're in Shrinkies, we're in 14 feet of water, big, huge flat. Swing the boat to the left. Now what happened was everything that was on the right side of your boat just slowed down. You got it down to 0.8, 1 mile an hour. Everything that's on the left side of your boat just sped up, 1.6, 1.8. Pay attention to that a lot. Swing that boat a couple times. So what'll happen is that a lot of times that'll trigger a strike. So and it does, and it happens more than once, or it happens multiple times. I need this boat going faster. If they're hitting on the slower side, same thing. Slow it down. Hard thing with that is, again, when you go faster, now your lure's diving more. When you slow it down, your lure came up higher. It's hard for me because I'm always trying to do better, and I want to do better, and I want to do better. So for me, I start overthinking stuff, and instead of just letting it be, I'll start, I hit on my slow side. So does that mean I just need to bring everything up higher? Does that mean I need to slow the boat down? You know what I mean? And that's part of the mistakes that I make, is I just start overthinking it, where, hey, it worked, just put everything like that and leave it be. Well, I won't. It'll be like starting all over again because I have to, because it'll bother me, because I'll go home and I'll say, man, we got 7, but we could have got 8 if I would have did this. But that's just part of the way I work.
My question is, let's say I'm going up north, middle of May, and I'm going walleye fishing, and I
Yeah,
don't
bring
have
off
this
with.
electronics and everything. Am I looking for water temperature, or am I looking for bleed structure, or what do I want to use for a starting point? Because those things are pretty big. I want to kind of eliminate where they won't be.
All right, well, this is all gonna change. different lakes do different things. So let's take Koshkanon, for example. We're in a 6-foot swamp that's a big flat. You're talking about me. I mean, ideally, if we're if we're open water walleyes, we're not in the rivers or anything. You want the water back up, in the low 50s, so they're coming out of the creeks, out of the rivers, and they're back out in the lakes. Koshkanon you take is a big flat. Delavan is one big weed bed all the way around the whole lake. So Koshkanon, you're in a 6-foot flat. Delavan in May, we're out there at night, and we're running in 7-8 feet of water, literally over the top of the weeds. You take Geneva in May, same thing at night, but I could be anywhere from 8 feet down to 30 feet down, depends where they're at. Biggest one I got out of Geneva this year was 29 inches, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I got that in 14 feet of water because they hadn't transitioned out. A lot of that's, depend on your locator. It depends what lake it is, depends where you're at. I mean, right now it's simple. Everybody knows we get that 42-degree water, them fish are in the rivers. Or they're up shale, or they're looking for somewhere to spawn. Even if they're not gonna spawn and they're premature, they're still gonna go up with the rest of them. Something in their head clicks that they want to. After that, I mean, it's the same spring pattern as anywhere else. Green weeds, oxygenated water, bait fish, forage. I can't, without knowing what lake you're on, and if I've never fished it, I couldn't tell you. When I go to a new body of water, the first thing I do is try to find fishing reports. Second thing I do is go to the bait store, and then, I'll be honest, actually I enjoy new bodies of water, because then I have to think about it the whole time. Geneva, if we're going to catch bass, I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I know what month, where I'm going. If we're on Geneva, we're going to catch walleyes, same thing. I know by what month, body, water temperature, all of that. I know where I'm going, I know what I'm gonna try. Go somewhere new and it's a crapshoot, I depend heavily on my electronics. And Lund put some pretty nice electronics on my boat, I'll give them that. Well, what was the next one? Okay. So, go ahead, Don.
Weights? Do you use, actually, first question is, do you use weights to get to a particular depth?
Well, like Lake Michigan, we run dipsies. That's, because I need to get to a depth. When you're talking about walleyes, we're catching them over 34. I mean, I've never really chased them more than 30 feet deep. Usually when I troll them in the fall, I got them up pretty shallow anyways. I'm less than 14 feet of water. In the summer when we're chasing them, when we're running harnesses, when I tie my harnesses, I usually tie them I try to tie them at least 6 feet. I try to tie them the length of the rod. So what happens when you're standing in my boat, if you got the rod tip up here, rod bends everything, fish is right here, it's right where I want it, and you can't wind it in anymore because my 1-ounce sinker's stuck in the end of my pole. Because that's where I have customers that lose fish, is they get excited, they don't get to do this but once a year, and everybody knows how it is. You've been, you're going up to Lake Geneva, you're fishing with Doug, you fish with him every year, you booked this in April, you're coming up in July when you go on vacation, well, you're a train wreck. Come the end of June, Friday night, I'm leaving, I'm fishing Saturday morning, that's all you thought about at your shitty job all week. There's not a person out there that doesn't understand that, You're going up to the Mississippi River for the weekend. Oh my God, Friday's coming, it's Monday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are long. Thursday's the worst day of your life. Friday, you're ready to kill people, and finally you're excited to go. So then you get in the boat, oh my God, okay, now we're excited. So usually I tie them the length of my rod. I run a 1-ounce sinker when I run harnesses, and the reason I do is because the math is really easy on it. At 1 mile an hour, a 1-ounce sinker falls half. So if I'm 20 feet back, I'm 10 feet down. If I'm 40 feet back, I'm 20 feet down. That is super simple to figure out. You go into a 1/2 ounce, you divide all of that by half, you start changing speeds, and then I have to start asking Google. Cause then we get past to where my brain will just function that fast. But I'm a huge fan, I'm not a huge fan of bottom bouncers. I know some guys are lethal with them. Every time I run them, I just end up with a pile of weeds on them. Well, cause literally I'm fishing lakes that are dominantly weed bottoms and weed structures. And I'm hitting the bottom, I'm running it through the weeds. For me, in the summer, say I'm in 26 feet of water, I have weeds that are standing, and I can see it on my hummingbird where they're standing 2 and 3 feet tall. Well, that tells me I want to be about 22 feet down. That's easy, 44 feet of line. You know, because again, harness, 1 ounce sinker. Some guys, one of my buddies that I fish with once in a while, Billy, that's out there all the time. He believes in pounding a bunch of split shots in front of him and that until he gets them to the desired depth. I believe, depending on my line counter, depending on what the lure is supposed to do, and you know, taking the factor of my speed and all, and I didn't do it to get it to a desired depth. Some lures are only going to dive so deep. Well, if I'm trolling 50 feet of water, I promise you I'm not on a local lake, I'm on Lake Michigan. And even out there, I know what a #1 dip sea will do, I know what a Magnum dip sea will do, but half the time down there, even catching the king salmon in that, I'm fishing between 20 and 80 feet down. I'm not fishing much deeper than that. And the same thing, I'll still stagger them in the water, and I look for them 2 that went or them 3 that went, where I've had a few bites, so now I kind of try to get everything adjusted to that depth. The biggest thing for me is depth is important. What's more important is matching what you caught fish on. You start getting lazy and you'll have, this one went off, it's 18 feet down and it's over 25 feet of water. Well, none of the rest of them have. So instead of trying to say, well, I should run deeper, I should do this, I should do that, hell no, drop them all to that depth and get your boat out a little farther. When you watch them and you watch them on your locator, as they come out from, let's say, middle of the day they're in 30 feet, you start chasing them in the evening. You start watching them, they're coming up. If them fish on your locator are 6 inches off the bottom in the middle of July, I don't care what you do, that is not a catchable fish. That's a negative fish. I've had it where we've seen them out on Delavan by Brad, where him and I've been out there at night, where you can see through the ice, and you see the ones that are taking off everywhere. Those are catchable fish because those are active fish. We've had, females that have been 24, 25 inches, and I know the ice and the water magnifies them, that are just literally let you stand over the top of them in 3 feet of water. You're not catching that fish. That fish wants nothing to do with nothing and doesn't even care. So negative fish that are dead on the bottom, I don't think it matters, or you're a lot better fisherman than I know.
You don't ever fish pike on Lake Michigan? Northern pike?
On Lake Michigan?
Yeah.
I don't chase pike out there.
You're kind of saying, or you guys never, or you just never tried. I got a friend an old friend, that's done it, South Shore, down by South Shore.
Well, for one, I don't have a captain's license. So the only time my dad lives in Tennessee, he comes up for a week a year, we fish Salmonorama. It's more to hang out with me and my brothers. So I go down there for that. In the spring, I go down there just because them little brown trout are in, and I run them on all my walleye gear. Them things are a blast. When the cohos are in, I'll go down once or twice, and again, that's because that's just a blast. If I want pike, I've got some of the best waters in southeast Wisconsin. I got Pewaukee's 35 minutes from my door. Beulah is, I think 12 minutes to the launch. For me to launch on Delavan, literally boat on the trailer, pulling out of my driveway takes 2 minutes and 12 seconds, and I'm on Delavan's boat launch. To go to Geneva to launch in Williams Bay takes me 9 minutes and 42 seconds. I just bought a new house out there, and it's kind of like every time I pulled the boat out, I had to see how long it took me. But I got all these world-class bodies of water within 5 minutes of me, or 10, I shouldn't say world-class, but southeast Wisconsin class bodies of water. So for me, I don't go chase all these different lakes. Like I said, I do go down to Lake Michigan once in a while, but mostly that's just because my dad comes up, and it's just something to do to hang out with them. And I will go down for the cohos, just once or twice, but
Lake Beulah would be a tough one to fish for pike.
when you're throwing bass, just start running suckers behind the boat. The same thing we do on Delavan, Geneva, Lauderdale, all of them. We just run suckers behind the boat. You know, just keep bass fishing.
If you're trolling the single rod, it's a, excuse me, 10 to 20 feet, how far back are you comfortable with that lure?
If I'm trolling a single rod
Holding on a rod?
and I'm back 10 to 20 feet,
No, you're in 10 to 20 feet of water.
what lure?
Anywhere,
Where my fish at?
excuse me?
Where are my fish at? I mean, am I
Say
over,
you're fishing for walleyes,
so I want it like 2 feet off the bottom?
yeah. How far back are you comfortable?
Depends what lure I got on. Depends how fast we're going, depends what time of year. With a harness, well, you already know my formula for the harness.
Let me rephrase that. Where you're not comfortable, you're not spooking the fish. They say if you go right over them, you know, that was the idea of the planer boards, that they went out to, you would catch the fish, you know,
Off to
when
the
you're
side.
off to the side of that.
I agree with that and I don't agree with that. There's 2 ways to look at it. One way, when we musky fish, I've usually got the radio on in my boat, and I got it on pretty loud, because I do believe them fish, when you get into November and October, they need to be stirred up, and they need to be moving, or they're just gonna sit there. In June, July, August, I think they have so much boat traffic over them and so much crazy stuff around here, I don't think it matters. Early April, like him and I crappie fish together a lot. Early April, it's damn near as long as far as I can cast to get them fish to move. They won't come up to the boat. Cause I just think that depends on what time of year, what body of water you're on. I mean, sooner or later, they have to see that boat every day. Or they have to see everybody's boat. They have to start, I think they get a little bit immune to the boat traffic. And then I think it's a whole new process again. But 10 to 20 feet of water straight behind the boat, I'd probably run 2 rods behind my boat and I'd probably run 4 boards. But it just, a lot of that depends. I mean, you get away with a lot more when it's overcast, when it's bright and sunny, when you don't have an algae bloom. I mean, there's a lot of factors that you can. Algae bloom, like on Delavan's, an amazing thing. First 3, if you've ever dove in Delavan, first 3 feet in July is algae bloom. You get below that, and Delavan's clearer than Geneva. I mean, you could see 30, 40 feet in front of you if you're swimming in the lake. Well, you got a little bit of cover. You're on Geneva and it's overcast. Normally, I could catch walleyes all day. You get on Geneva, it's bright and sunny. You should be running boards. But again, if you ever notice, though, our bigger walleyes that come out of both of those bodies of water are usually first thing in the morning or in the evening. I'm not, I mean, I do get, we used to catch a lot more when you go out there in the middle of the night. I'm just not that guy anymore. If I'm up past 10, 11 o'clock, I'm screwed up for a couple days. So, I mean, it's just part of getting older. But if you wanted to start at 4 in the morning, man, I'm right there and I'm wide awake and I'm ready. You know, I just told him this morning, I slept till 6 o'clock almost, you know.
I got a question. So let's say you're running 20-foot water and the fish are at 18 foot. Do you want to?
16.
16 foot. Do you wanna set your lure at 16 foot to be on the same plane, or do you wanna be a foot above them or 2 foot above them?
Can I run 4 boards and do long lines and stagger them above them? That's what I want to do. Well, for one, you never want to be below something. Fish feed up.
Right.
With that being said, you also see the perch and the bluegills and the walleyes. They always, dig stuff off the bottom. As a rule, lures coming past them, they feed up. Everybody's caught perch or walleyes that have had the brown on the nose where they're digging in the mud and all of that. As a rule, with the lure or with live bait moving, fish feed up. So if I was in 20 feet of water and all my fish were 16 feet down, my first set would probably be between 12 and 14 feet down. I wouldn't try to run through them that close to them. And I know this is like really hard to do, but I'd directional troll them. If I came at them from the north, and once I lost them, I'd turn the boat around and I'd come back at them from the south, just because sometimes Well, a lot of times, you know, you wanna come up from behind them if you can. If they can see it too long and they can think about it too long, usually they don't mess with it.
So you make a couple passes then?
Always. I'd always make more than one, just cause I went through them and I didn't do anything, I would still turn that boat around and come back through them from a different direction. And as a rule, I don't run my same line twice in one trip. Say we're running a 14-foot contour and I'm catching fish, when I turn around and come back through it, I'll come back on a 16-foot contour, I'll come back on a 12-foot contour. What I've noticed, a lot of times when you run back on the same contour and your lures went right over the exact same thing you did, say you got 4 the first time, second time you'll get 2. You just offset it a little bit and you seem to do a lot better. There's a button right on your Humminbird that will actually ask you if you want to offset. It's go to, push the button 4 or 5 times, it'll push you over 10 feet, and hit go. And your Minn Kota will literally take your boat from this line and put it on this line. And it does it all by itself. You're still watching your boards, you're paying attention to everything that's going on. It's completely cordless operation. You've got that feature on yours. If you can, before we leave, if I can get Sean to put get one of their locators on, I'll show you how to do it. It's literally takes all of 2 seconds. I'll have Brad record it and put it on YouTube.
Really?
So whenever you wanna know how to do it, it'll be on a YouTube page.
I got one question. Line diameter. What do you normally typically use for walleyes?
I run a 12-pound main line.
Okay. Just,
I run 12-pound XT, and the reason I run XT is because it takes a little bit more of a beating than XL. If I'm casting, I'm an XL fan, but I usually run 12-pound XT on my main lines.
leader,
Leader, I run high end.
Fluorocarbon?
I run soft, yeah, fluorocarbon. But so Fish Lab came out 2 years ago. Okuma actually owns them. A good friend of mine, Mark Rogers from Okuma, is the sales rep for the country, gave me, it's called Soft Steel. It's the only stretchable fluorocarbon on the market. I love it. I'm running it on my tip-ups. I'm running it on everything that I'm running a leader line on. The only thing you can't do with it, like when you go into the cheaper ones, like this, the Berkeleys and that, when you go into the cheap fluorocarbons, that you can actually spool the reel with and run fluorocarbon all the way through. With this, you can't. This is actually, I know this is it. Yeah, this is a 17-pound soft steel fluoro.
so you're running that heavy or floral?
Yeah, this will actually stretch.
Wow.
I mean, the mono stretches a lot more, but the difference is, so now, when you talk about fluoros, and if you go into the off-brands, like the Berkeley, or you go into the Seagars, you're into an extruded line. Like with your monos, they're just extruded. They run them. They can be off 10, 20%, they're fine. You go into the higher end florals, like the soft steels and some of the, well, there's a reason when you see on that package why 20 yards is $20, there's a reason behind it. So it's laser extruded, so it's through and through. What it says it is, it is. There's no deviation in it, there's no nothing in it. Go ahead.
What was the brand name of the soft steel?
I run soft steel.
Who, I mean, what, is it Okuma, is it Berkeley?
No, Okuma owns it. It's Fish Lab or Fish Elite. Who makes it? Fish Lab? Yeah, Fish Lab. Brad's got it in his store. Mike and Becky Smith have it in their store. I know Brad has piles of it in his store. They came out with a whole different, and I'm not going to say anything bad, but they came out with a braid that I didn't like. They came out with a mono that I thought it was just, even though I understand the diameter was a little bit smaller, I thought it was just the same as a mono. Their floral has been a showstopper for me. I've been really impressed with it. So when I'm running it, I can tie it. 60 pound is as high as I can tie, and actually still build the knot. So when I run my muskies, that's what I'm running is 60 pound. I've had nicks in the leader, and I still haven't broke the leader. I run 20 pound on our tip ups. Well, yeah, I don't care who you are. If you got that braid in that tip up braid in your hand and you're pulling a hook through onto the side of the ice, yeah, you're gonna break it. But we're not breaking many lines. It doesn't have barely any memory. Even when it's cold, it's still functional. You know, with some of the other ones, how they went, you know, you get down 15, 20 degrees, how they don't move, they don't function. It's still functional, it's still limp. I've been really, really impressed with it.
It don't coil or anything like that.
It barely has any memory. Next time I'm over by you guys, Jim usually has me come out and show some of the new products that came out. If I remember and I'm horrible about remembering stuff, tell Jim to send me an email and I'll see if I can get a couple spools. I've been super impressed with it.
My question is there a special knot you gotta use for that soft steel?
I go through it twice and twist it 6-8 times just like you always did and then wrap it up. I mean, I have it right here. I know I know exactly what it is. See how there's actually a little bit of stretch to it? When you take this is 12 pound XT. Notice I just broke it. You can see how much stretch is in your mono though. Mono really moves. It's the only stretchable floral on the market. I think it's huge. I really do. I don't know. I've been super happy with it. The only bad downside is, like I said, when you go into the lower ends, like the Berkeley Vanish and that, Berkeley Vanish on my bass rods, I have it ran through the whole reel. Because we're only running 6 and 8 pound on the bass rods. Well, with this you can't. It won't lay down like the cheaper stuff will.
Yeah, you mentioned crappie fish, and I was wondering what maybe some of your favorite spots are. And when they're grouped up in the shallows, how do you find them? Are you just constantly trolling and casting, or are you trying to?
When crappies are shallow in the early spring when they're getting ready to spawn, I cannot catch them trolling. About a week after they spawn, it's my favorite thing to do until about November. I love trolling them. But in the spring for us, everything's usually a seasonal pattern. If they've been here last year and they were here the year before and they were here the year before, and I'm not a big fan of fishing off memory, but the minute Delavan opens, about 2 weeks after it opens, I'll start chasing crappies. The minute Geneva opens, about a week after, I'll start chasing crappies. I'm gonna go to the same places I went last spring.
Are you just casting into it?
Well, then I'm usually slip bobber and minnow, slip bobber and waxy, slip bobber ice fishing jig, slip bobber with plastic and a spike. Anything that'll let them get it and hold on to it for a second. Because you gotta remember, we're still 35-degree water fish that aren't super aggressive. And then, again, once you get into the summer though, game on, man. It's time to troll them things. Those I don't run boards for. I just tie 2 jigs on a 3-way and I put plastic on them and yeah, that's a blast. That literally is probably my favorite fishing to do.
You do St. Delvin, Geneva?
Yeah, I don't do it more. We do more bass and muskies and everything else than we do anything. But like when my dad lives down in Tennessee where they got the big freaking monster crappies, that's all I want to do the whole time I'm down there. Wakachi's actually a pretty good crappie lake for trolling crappies. I've had a blast out there before too. Delavan's been hit pretty hard the last few years. Their crappie population is I wouldn't say it's a smaller population, but I'd say they're smaller size than they've been lately. I do believe it's a bigger population because we're getting a lot more 5, 6, 7, 8 inchers than we normally would get, but we're not getting the 12s and 13s like we used to. I just think every lake, I truly believe, cycles. I just think we're in that cycle where it's another year or two and then Delavan will be amazing again for crappies. Because the fish are there, you can see them, you can catch them, they're just smaller right now. Geneva's putting out monster crappies. not as good as Geneva, the same thing. I don't believe it's as good as it used to be. When we crappie fish Geneva, usually what I'll tell you is the first 2 hours when we do it in the summer, we'll do it the first hour and a half, 2 hours. Then after that, figure out what you want to do the rest of the trip. Because after 7 o'clock in the morning, they get really hard to catch. But we start early. Usually I'll get you 6 or 8 of them. But again, in the middle of the summer, nobody eats them. You know, they get kind of, through the ice, they're amazing. You feel the same way we feel?
Yeah.
I fish mostly Wind Lake, and there's just so much shallow structure everywhere that in the spring, when they're spawning, they can be just about anywhere. It just seems like, for me, I find them I'll get, where I really find them catch, 40, 50 crappies. And I'll find that like one every 3 years or so. And then the other 2 years, it's hit or miss, you just get a couple here, a couple there.
Well, Wind Lake's part of the river system too, though, so it's got a lot of changes on it. I wish I could help you more. I've been on that lake twice in my life, and once was through the ice.
We got the same thing here.
Yeah, no, I know a retired deputy that goes out there and does really good on bigger perch and that consistently.
Bigger bluegills, how you doing bluegills?
I mean, we catch them all the time. We mostly fish for crappie, and then sometimes we'll end up in the bluegills instead,
But you got
they're still
Tishigan,
8, 9 inches. It's all under.
but you got Tishigan right down the street.
Yeah.
Tishigan's a crappie producing lake.
Yeah,
Tishigan's a
crappies are-
great lake to troll plastic in the summer. Especially the way they poison it out. They poison them weeds. Cause you can literally get that boat right on that weed edge. Troll down it once and record it, and you can turn that boat around and run back through it, trolling plastics through them. Tishigan's pretty phenomenal crappie. I mean, I've never caught one over 12 inches out there, but I've caught a lot of 10 inchers that were worth keeping. But to me, if I'm actually fishing, for me to keep 3 or 4 fish is about all I'm keeping enough so my mom has a meal. I'm not a big fish keeping fan.
And what's your, trolling?
6/10, between 6 and 9/10, depends. Never over 9 and never usually below 6.
Look, can you talk about your rods and reels you use for trolling?
For trolling walleyes? Everything I run's from Okuma. This is one of their convector rods. It's just, I flat out like them. They're easy to get, easy to replace parts, very user friendly. And for everybody, the few people here that have fished with me, you guys know I'm not the most coordinated person on the planet. So if there's a way to destroy something, I can do it. I love their line counters. I've never had something fail. That's why I run them. I mean, I could be their poster child. You've both been in my boat. Everything is Okuma, 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 Okuma. I know Brad carries a lot more manufacturers, but I have an open communication line to the guy that runs the place. So when I don't understand him, I can understand something, I can call and ask him, and to me, that's huge. How many people bring mixed drinks to a boat show? You know, Fred? Okay. You never been to his bait store?
I haven't seen work.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not everybody's perfect.
away.
All I do when we go down there is it's real basic, real simple. I run that super small dipsy, the smallest one they got. The one that doesn't trip, you just tie on. I run a peanut fly about 6 feet back from it. Or I run flicker minnows. Usually I go out of Racine and get the boat in about 16 feet of water. And I either just head north to the power plant or I head south to Carthage College. By the time we're there, we're done. I know there's guys that sometimes they'll outfish me, sometimes they don't. It's just so simple, man. I mean, that's one of them bites I don't think you need to have planer boards behind your boat when the cohos are in. But just super simple that, I can't think of the name of it. It's usually either that purple flicker or it's the Fire Tiger Pro. What's the name of the purple Pro flicker? Hey, bait store guy. What's the name of the purple, the Pro flicker? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Or the Fire Tiger Pro.
Is that in June?
No, it's usually right after Easter. When did we go?
That was for the week,
That was the end of April.
yeah.
That is April 25th, right when we came back from Mississippi River. Yeah, we went down there and we got it. They weren't happening yet, but they were starting to, because I know Steve got a couple cohos. He got one of the biggest browns I've seen come out of that lake in forever. And we got wet. There was a video on my Facebook. It was one of the mornings where it was just so nice out. And we launched out of Racine and we actually ended up all the way by Oak Creek. And on the way back, we put the Bimini cover up and we put the bilge pump on, and it was bad. We had a blast, but it was bad. It was one of them, we got to the launch and he says, "Would you ever do that again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think so." But then, usually right after Easter, I thought is when we started on them. Then usually by the end of May, they start going out deep, and they're done for me because I won't chase them deep. But first Saturday in May, when our season opens, it's really hard for me to get my boat off of Geneva or Delavan. I mean, it's hard to turn down paying your bills to go fun fish, you know, especially when you've sat. You know, like this winter, Mother Nature's been horrible to us. So for ice fishing, I'm down like 70%. So it's time to get the boat in the water. But, you know, every day I think I'm going to go get it. Then we got salt on the road or something else. And it's like, it is what it is. It'll happen. I'll survive it, but I'm ready for it. You still thinking about what the color is?
Yeah, I think like a purple tiger.
No. Okay, nobody knows. Wow, we're good. So,
Just call them purple or something.
no, it's a pro color that they make. I don't know. It just don't matter. But those are the three that I run. Anything with a chrome pattern usually does good. Fire Tiger Pro, and actually like 7s are pretty good. You start getting into like 9s or 11s, and you do less. It's like smaller does better. And I'll hit just as many on a long line as I do a board. It's just more of a matter of coming over the top of a school of them. Come over the top of a school of them, and you'll have 5 lines go at once. Turn around, come back over them, you're done fishing. So I mean, that part was fun. The bad part is you're done. So, or you can do like we do. Unless we killed it, we don't keep it. You know, if I can make it swim, because I'd rather go down there and fish them, because for me it's a treat, because I barely ever get to do it. Good thing is you don't need a 24-foot boat to go do it. You can go do it, you know, I mean, you're 100 yards off the shore. You know, it's not, watch your weather forecast, doesn't matter what you have, you can go. Look at all the people that go down there in kayaks. They're crazy, but they do it, you know. Yeah, I get it, people drink, but. Is there anything else you guys want to cover?
Do you normally use a swivel or do you tie direct?
I always use a swivel.
Okay.
So,
Easier.
first time you get something stuck on that lure, and that lure is, I'm replacing main line.
Okay.
And to be honest, my eyes aren't I'm almost 50 years old. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. For me to tie a main line to a main line,
It's a pain in the ass.
usually I do that at home.
Yeah,
'Cause-
wind out there, rain out there. It's not-
Yeah.
it's just all the elements.
And at night, I can't do it at all anymore. It's just flat out, it's not happening. That's why Lund has these big rod lockers in them. For people, they design them exactly for people like me that can't see anymore. So if I have 2 people in the boat and I need to run 6 lines, I'll bring 12 with, so I don't have to tie them at night.
Yeah. Sure would save a lot of time.
Slick purple, Bengal.
Yeah, slick purple.
They got a purple candy. They got a lot of purples.
Said go to Google.
Ah, I don't want to tell them anyways.
They had mentioned it, but Geneva, fishing at night, like what hours and any recommendations,
What time of year?
whenever you recommend.
I wouldn't. I'd recommend going in the morning. But if I had to fish at night, I mean, you're just asking my honest opinion. First couple hours in the morning are just as good as the first couple hours in the evening. December, as soon as it starts to get dark out, July, a little bit later. Usually a lot of times that bites 1 a.m., 3 a.m., somewhere in there. It literally depends on what time of year, and what I've noticed more and more is every year seems to be different. But a lot of times, as long as it's nighttime, and after it's been dark for an hour or two, they start moving up. I don't know why they don't feed out deep. What brings them up in December is the first full moon in December is when your Cisco's come up and spawn. That's why you see everything coming up. So it's, a free, easy meal. So that's it. And as soon as it gets dark out, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But Geneva, with all the money that has been put into it, you try it hard enough, you can catch walleyes in the morning out there. You can catch them on the overcast days. Every once in a while, you'll get lucky, and get one in the middle of July and during the day, but that's a freak occurrence, when you're bluegill fishing. But mornings are actually my favorite. The last couple of years, I just have a harder and harder time staying up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. When I do, I'm useless the next day. Because again, if we say we were out till 2 a.m., I still get up at 5:30, and I can't help it. And then I'm just like, and I'm like that for like 2 days. So, them guys that go out there and they do that all night, God bless them. Yes, sir.
A couple of questions. Have you noticed any difference in the water levels? They're more, just talking to some guys, they're generally saying water level is been receding. And my other question is, even later in the year on Geneva, do you ever fish the humps for walleyes?
Sometimes, not too often. Usually,
Not too often?
no. Usually, it's pretty beat up. Look at last year or the year before. All the guys that just parked their ass over them. But they're doing the elimination game. They're almost doing the muskie game. If I put enough hours, I put enough time. I put enough hours. I put enough time. Sooner or later, I will hit one. I don't have that kind of patience. I'm not going to sit there with a jigging rack for 8 hours to catch 2 fish. That's not the way I was designed. I can't do that. They can.
You don't play the wind or something, you get on the backside of the hump or something, the way that would, the current of the lake or like that would have an effect on one of the.
Well, let me put it this way. So if I'm sitting there and I'm hitting jigging wraps or I'm hitting shiver minnows or whatever, we go hit 6 or 8 different humps or holes out there and we don't do something and I have to catch walleyes, I'm throwing boards behind that bull and I'm going to start covering ground.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough distance where you could board over the top of them or alongside of them or something.
I've got both of them in Williams Bay are autopiloted into my locator. I have whole tracks around them. I have the ones in the narrows. I have tracks around those recorded in my locator. I have the couple in Shrinkies recorded into my locator. I have the one in Fontana recorded. I have the other side of Fontana recorded. All I got to do is hit a button and she'll do it all herself. But a lot of guys for the last few years literally sat there and look at the one out in front of Lynn Road. It's not holding fish like it did. A lot of guys just sat there and beat on them and beat on them and beat on them. I mean, you can only pull so many fish off one place to when there's finally not going to be fish in that place. And I hate to say it, but a lot of them were local guys. That's the one good thing I have is where I get people that come in from all over the country. People that come in from Arizona or that, I will do different things than I will do with somebody that's coming in from northern Chicago that has their own boat. Just because I know this guy ain't coming back here.
This guy ain't coming back.
Yes, exactly.
You got a GPS on him.
Right. I mean, and don't get me wrong, no matter what, I'm going to put you on fish. I'm not going to hold back on you. But there's just a couple places like where I fish.
That color, huh?
Well, there's a couple places I fished with like my dad growing up or my grandfather. Well, I'm not going there. I promise you I'm not going there with somebody local because when my dad comes up or when my kids are in my boat or something, I want to go there. But I mean, I'll put you on fish, but there's just a couple things I do hold close. And someday I might have to fish against you. You never know. So.
How do you, what sort of techniques you use to deal with the weeds when they start cutting on Geneva and you get the floating weeds everywhere?
Stop trolling, start casting,
Cast, okay.
stop chasing walleyes.
I heard one guy said, if you're trolling, just put your tip of your rod in the water and then let it out so your flicker minnows underneath the weeds or something, or.
I'm not that high tech of a fisherman, brother. If it's gonna be that difficult and I gotta fight it to fish it, we're gonna fish something else. I mean, ideally, yeah, you'd wanna be able to troll, you'd wanna be able to cast, you'd wanna be able to do whatever you want year round. Well, that's not gonna happen. When they have the big floating bogs of weeds on Geneva, it's time to go fish bass or go fish something else. Just because you can catch walleyes all year round right now, it doesn't mean you have to. You know, and I'll try to do that right over the phone. I'll explain to somebody, hey, this ain't the time to be doing it. And I'll let them know that before we even start so they have the option. But I'm not a fan of beating myself up to make something happen if you know it's not gonna happen. Actually, Delavan, you know, they got all that stuff that's floating, but that one you can usually control with the wind. You know, if you got a north wind, I can still fish on this side. If you got a south wind, I can fish on this side of the lake. Geneva, there's so much, it's the busiest lake in the state. There's so much boat traffic and so much stuff gets turned up. You start coming into July, it's just the way, it's just reality. There's nothing you're gonna do about it, so the best thing to do is change how you fish instead of trying to fight with it all day. It'll just be miserable.
For the humps get hit, because right out in the middle of some of those humps are, where the traffic isn't so much around the shoreline, the boat traffic.
Either that or stay off the lake in the middle of the day on the weekend.
Yeah, on a weekend, for sure.
Right, during the week.
If we go, just stay off the front away.
I wouldn't agree with that. Beulah's Beulah's a gem. As long as you're off of it by 10 a.m., Beulah's a gem.
That's a hard lake to fish.
It
Big
is.
lake, amount of luck for me. Talk about Beulah.
That's all right, there's more fish for there for me to catch.
You gotta fish it early?
Yeah, always early in the morning. What time did we go? 6 to like 10:30? Yeah, and it wasn't bad. It's right, they take the no wake off of it at like 10 o'clock. Have your boat on the trailer. It's like a dog getting off its collar. As soon as it hits that 10 o'clock in the summer, you can see the people getting on their pier ready to go. You know, but to me, I love the place in the morning. I mean, you think about it. So we're fishermen. We're gonna get out there at 5:30 in the morning. We're gonna be on the water. All three lakes are no wake. You literally have it to yourself except for a couple fishermen. There's nobody out there doing anything. I mean, to me, that's phenomenal. You can actually hear people and hear stuff. It's not like Delavan or Geneva where, oh my God, it's 8 o'clock and you're already thinking you're in a washing machine, you know? So I like it, but I mean, to each their own.
What are you mostly fishing, Beulah?
Bass. Some pike, but mostly bass. And it depends the time of year. If you know, in the middle of the summer and I can start throwing deeper for bass, then I run suckers behind us for pike. If all our bass are shallow, then I'm just kind of stuck at it, you know.
Of all the lakes around the area for bass, where would you go?
Really? Camp Lake, Center Lake, Paddock Lake's got some monsters. Those are the ones I grew up on.
Okay, what about Beulah, Pewaukee, Delavan?
Pewaukee, no.
Eagle.
Pewaukee, so you take Pewaukee's. So you're smallmouth fishing Pewaukee, right?
Right.
You get 10 smallies in a 4-hour trip. You had a great day on Pewaukee.
Okay.
You get 10 smallies in a 4-hour trip on Geneva. You should have had 15. Something you did wrong. You go to Delavan in the spring. Well, let's say Beulah or Pewaukee in the spring for largemouth. You had 10 in a trip. You did good. You go to Delavan in May. You better have had 50 in a trip.
Any size though?
Oh yeah.
That's what.
Right, so that's why I'm a Pewaukee muskie fan. I'm a Pewaukee walleye fan through the ice. I'm a Pewaukee late fall pre-ice walleye fan. I'm not a Pewaukee bass fan. I've got some of the best bass waters in the state by me. Geneva's in the top 5 for smallies.
Right.
Geneva's a freaking largemouth factory if you like 2 and 3 pound bass. I got Delavan literally at the end of my street. Delavan is a bass factory. I mean, that place is
Smallmouth and largemouth?
more largies than smallies. But again, so now you're back to, if you're talking about smallmouth on Delavan, you're going back more to comparing that to Pewaukee, where if you had 10 in a trip, you did great. But largemouth, Delavan is simple, it's easy for my customers, it's 2 minutes from my house, and it is a largemouth factory. I love that place until about the 4th of July, and then I switch over to Geneva. Geneva seems to stay more consistent longer in the year, where Delavan gets so busy that, and I know there's not as many boats as there are on Geneva, but it's so much smaller. I'm in a 19-foot boat, and I get beat up more on Delavan than I do on Geneva.
Really?
Delavan turns into like a washing machine
Even
in the
early
middle of
spring,
July. Huh?
Early spring?
No, early spring, it's wonderful.
Pretty fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually anybody that calls me for the rock, I usually have them call Adam Walton from Pike Pole. I go out there once in a great while. It'll be one of them Saturdays, like if I had nothing to do. But I think last year I was on Kashkanan once, and the year before I was on it twice. It's just not my thing. And again, for me, everything I want to do is in my backyard. So I usually don't travel too much because I just don't have to. The Rock should be, in the next 2 weeks, you should see about 8,000 people on the internet that caught a walleye out there. So they could be internet heroes to show everybody that they caught a walleye. And you should be able to just jump from one boat to another here in a couple more weeks.
What's the name of that guy again?
Oh, Adam Walton. Pike Pole, Pikepole guide service. He lives right there in Edgerton. He grew up on Kashkanan and that. His parents had a farm out there, and he is phenomenally a great, amazing person. But that's who I tell everybody to call. If you can get with him, usually he books out pretty quick. He's actually given us some of his overflow from ice this year, but open water, I know he books out pretty quick. He also does the sonar training for Hummingbird. He works for the Edgerton Fire Department, so that's why he can only fish so many days a week. But he does all the first responder training for Hummingbird, all the sonar training for him. He's just a really good, well-rounded, knowledgeable person, and he's funny as heck. Is there about anything else you guys want to cover? Are we golden? We would have been done about 5 minutes earlier, just remember. Oh wait, where'd your driver go? Oh, there he is, hiding.
Your views on boards setting to release or not release?
Never, ever do I want my board to fall off into water. You're just saying this to get me fired up. So they do make them to where, again, when we go into Sean's, the one that looks like it's brand new in the package, except somebody took the package off. They make them to where they will come off. Again, there's no pin in there to hold it. You can also get that on the front. Fish hits it, you lose this board, I gotta turn around and go get it. I would never, whoever in their mind thought of that. I mean, that's gotta be right up, that's like one of the dumbest things you could possibly think of. It's about as dumb as listening to the people that predict the weather right now. You know, I mean, it's just not smart. Why would you want to turn around and chase your freaking $50 planer board somewhere? I want my board in my hand, in my boat, so I can drop it on the floor of my boat, step on it 3 or 4 times, because I want to replace stuff on it. I don't want it floating into somebody else's boat. He's talking about the Rock River. We're out on Kashkanan, it's 20-mile-an-hour winds. Now I got to turn around and find a planer board somewhere? Who would literally ever want to do that? That makes no sense. I mean, yeah, that's not, no. Steve's a good friend of mine. He owns the archery shop out in East Troy. And we fish together a lot. And I know he just said that just because he knew that would fire me up. Yes, sir.
What about the technique of just using the front release and then pinning the rear release, just so it's easier to pull?
If you got them both on, she actually will pull right through the water for you. You gotta big pike, big walleye, monster diving fish and you're deep, you're gonna lose the board. Just going under the water, that's a whole different ballgame. Then you're stuck, you're waiting, you're slowed down. Best thing to do then is turn the kicker motor off and just pull her with the electric, cause slow everything down. You want this board to be attached. If you're not attached on the back, you don't know that you got a bite always. Tattle flag is one of them. It like rates right up there with like milk in a freaking thing, butter, sliced bread, stuff like that. A lot of times you go into them light biting fish like Geneva's. Well, you guys fish Pewaukee, you guys fish Geneva, you guys fish Okauchee, Oconomowoc. They got a lot of rock bass in them. You get one of them little things on, and that board will just fall back a little bit. Sometimes the flag will trip. You get the stationary flag, or you're not hooked into the back of it. Your board's just running, and you're dragging the fish. Now you have a line out there that's doing literally nothing for you.
You use a locking clamp.
Yeah, I do.
If you remove that and put a releasable clip on the front, but you use the pin clamp on the back, you can release the front and then you got less drag and then get back into the boat.
No. So, for one, this is actually going to be up this way when it's coming through the water. It should go through pretty good for you. If this is held on to my line, that's what's going on. I don't want that. It'll slide right down it. It'll wrap up into it. I don't want that. I want it. Yeah, well, I don't want that kind of mess. That's why I don't do it. I've seen them down south. We tried them on crappies that broke away. They had a little snap on the side of them, and they were supposed to slide back down. Well, it'd slide into my swivel, and then I'd have my one line this way, my other this way. We'd get it in a boat, and it'd be a big mess, and every time it was a mess, and I'm like, it was not my thing. I mean, everybody fishes different. I get that, and some people are a lot more. I'm very, very high strung, and I get like, we need to catch, we need to do this now. I'll be cutting lines and putting stuff away and grabbing more poles. That's why I said I think Lund, literally, when they designed their rod lockers, they designed them for me. My boat holds 14 in the middle, and it's supposed to hold 4 over here, but if you do really good, you can get about 8 over there. So, because I will not, because I won't screw with it. I'll just put a different pole out.
You ever adjust the weight in the bottom?
No, I know you can, and you start getting, if you got one board running like this, next one's running like this, next one, you know they are. I'm not that big into, let's screw with this, let's get it perfect. So to screw with it, that means I had to wind it in. That means I do not have that lure out there trying to catch fish right now. And I'm not, once I got them out, I want to go, I want to catch, I'm not a tinkering person. Like, there's people you fish with that they go fish and they get in their boat and they play with their electronics and they play with all